This prisoner was electrocuted to death by a bad guy with 100,000 volts, but his brain contained the top secret of military weapons. So the CIA director Quaker quickly found a dead prisoner and planned to transfer the memory of the prisoner to his brain. He used a device that was carefully operated by a brain surgeon to insert the light into the brain of the second person and enter the frontal lobe from the base of the head and then stimulate the brain nerve. Soon, the memory of the prisoner's proportion was in the form of microelectrolysis, and a new neural distribution map was drawn in the brain of the prisoner. But just when the memory was half transmitted, the detector made a terrible alarm sound. The temperature of the prisoner's brain was rising rapidly. If the operation was not stopped in time, he might have died. But the director Quaker didn't care about that.
Nothing! You carry on!
But the temperature of the prisoner's brain suddenly dropped, and the operation was successfully completed. But when he recovered, there was no memory of the agent. Quaker was furious at the moment because the dead agent determined the entire US. It turned out that Jericho, who was supposed to communicate with the agent, was nicknamed Holland. He found a safety loophole in the US weapon system that could remotely operate nuclear missiles. If he didn't find this hacker quickly, he would launch a missile 48 hours later. And Bill was the only one who knew where the hacker was. The prisoner still had no memory of Bill in his mind. The angry Quaker sent his men to send him back to prison. Jericho thought he was just forced to participate in an experiment. When the car was driving on the road, the agent sitting in the passenger seat quietly took out a dead driver's license and then inadvertently dodged him. Jericho reacted instantly, realizing the opponent wanted to kill him. So he quickly used his teeth to bite off the metal strip next to the glass. The agent heard the movement and looked back. However, Jericho was calm. So the agent didn't care anymore. But the next second, the agents next to him wanted to help but were too late. The panic led to an accident in the car. But Jericho didn't cause much damage. And the first thing he did after he got out of the car was to drag the driver opposite to the agent's car. Finally, Jericho set the car on fire and made up a false impression that he had also died in a car accident. He had lived in prison for many years. After breathing in the air of freedom, the first thing he imagined was to enjoy a free and happy life. So he came to the burger shop and picked up a burger that he hadn't eaten yet. The boss had never seen such a shameless person. He picked up the hammer and wanted to teach him a lesson. But Jericho didn't give up. Then he took a bottle of drink and turned around to leave. Then Jericho came to the side of the road again, when he saw a big luxury car in front of him.
Taking advantage now. Fuck off.
Everyone witnessed Jericho's violence, but no one dared to stop him. In this way, Jericho drove the truck away. When he was walking, he suddenly had a lot of memories that didn't belong to him in his mind. Jericho was in so much pain that there was not only a picture of Bill and his wife, but also the address and password of his house. So he had a bad idea. He turned over the fence and came to Bill's house. According to Bill's memory, he easily opened the password at the door. This scene scared Bill's wife. But Jericho's action was very fast. He tied her up with a rubber band. The photos on the table brought back a lot of memories. Then he went to his daughter's room and looked at the sleeping girl on the bed. More fragments of memories were flowing out like a spring. Even in the mirror, he saw Bill's face. Jericho was a little confused. He knew that if he continued to wait, he would be blocked by memories for a while. So he took out some valuables and was ready to leave. Unknowingly, when Bill didn't notice her, she pressed the alarm button of the house with her feet. Soon, the CIA's received the distress signal. But who knew that Jericho had pressed the security code to release the alert? It meant that he remembered more of Bill's memories. In order to prevent the future, he decided to kill Jill. At this time, Jill also successfully unlocked the rubber band and hid in her daughter's room. She locked the door and blocked it with a cabinet. Jericho chased her, but the photos at the door made Bill's memories reappear. At this moment, Jericho finally realized that Bill's memories were gradually erasing him. He was afraid that if he didn't leave, he would lose himself forever. So he had to leave in a hurry. Jericho walked on the street and saw a lot of books on the street. Suddenly, he saw a memory clip. In the clip, a bag full of cash was stuffed into the bookshelf. He followed the memory to the bookstore, but he didn't find the bag. In order to find the wallet, he logged into Bill's account. And he found Dr. Franks, who had performed the memory transplant on him. He wanted to get information about Bill from Dr. Franks, But he didn't know that Dr. Franks and Quaker had colluded with each other. Quaker had called the doctor in advance. If Bill arrived, Dr. Franks would do everything he could to get the whereabouts of Jericho. As soon as Bill arrived at the destination, his memory started to become confused again. Dr. Franks realized that the memory transplant had been successful. In less than a day, Bill could be completely replaced. But Bill wanted to leave as soon as possible. As a result, he was caught by Quaker's men as soon as he left. But on the way back to the police station, the police received news that the Dutchman was at the airport. This meant Jericho had lost his use value. So Quaker and his men decided to take him back to prison and execute him immediately. Unexpectedly, when Quaker arrived at the airport, he discovered that the Dutchman was not the real Dutchman at all. It was a trick played by the terrorists. It turned out that not only the CIA wanted to capture the Dutchman, but also the terrorists. They planned to control the US military's nuclear weapons system. When they learned that Quaker had captured Jericho, they devised a deception. They thought they could get Jericho through this plan. Unexpectedly, after the fight, Jericho was killed by Quaker. Now, Jericho had become the #1 target in everyone's eyes. When he was injured, he couldn't go to the hospital for treatment. He had no choice but to go to Bill's house, knowing there was an emergency medical kit there. But just as he was about to treat his wound, Bill's daughter arrived home. He knew that it might be the Bill wife again. So she immediately pulled her gun and prepared to shoot him. But when she learned that Jericho had planted Bill's memory, she was reluctant to kill him. Until Jericho told him the secret that only the two of them knew. This completely destroyed the last line of Bill's letter. Although the man in front of her was not the Dutchman, she had a close relationship with the Dutchman. She asked Jericho to leave immediately. This time, the innocent little girl suddenly invited Jericho to play the piano together. And when she saw this scene, she was very sad. It was as if the Dutchman was right in front of her. But she knew that things shouldn't develop like this, so she made another trick. But before Jericho left, Jill still couldn't help but ask.
What really felt?
He loves you so much.
She was too late. After she left, she may never find the feeling of Bill again. So she decided to let Jericho sleep on the sofa for the night. The next day, the two of them were talking in the living room. How did Jericho notice the sign of the University of London on the cup? He remembered that the leather bag was likely to be in the library of the University of London. So he left immediately. As a result, as soon as he got there, he found the leather bag. He discovered that the leader of the terrorists, Xavier, had been waiting there for a long time. He threatened Jill and his daughter's lives, forcing Jericho to cooperate with him. The emotions that his brain had been holding back left Jericho with no choice but to compromise. Then he took Bill's gun to the street where he and the Dutchman met. Not waiting for them to arrive, he did not catch the Dutchman's attention. Jericho took this opportunity to throw a bottle of acid liquid first, then a bottle of oil, causing a big explosion in the lab. He had studied math and physics, and he was not afraid to take risks across the world. After killing Bill's subordinates, he first met the Dutchman, who was chasing after everyone. But just as he was trying to crack the nuclear control of the military weapon system, the terrorist subordinates chased him again. Just then, he did not kill him. When the nuclear control activated, she used a gun to kill the Dutchman. Just as she was reporting to the boss about her work, Jericho quietly picked up a pot of cactus juice behind him. And he smashed it directly into her head. At this moment, the nuclear control returned to the hands of Jericho. But at this time, he received a call from a terrorist again. The other party threatened him to exchange the life of Bill's daughter with the nuclear control. At this moment, Jericho's mind was full of memories of Bill. He was not in control at all to save the Dutchwoman. So he crashed into the meeting point without hesitation. First, he hit the Xavier little brother, and then he picked a hammer and killed 2 more. But when he saw that Jill was still in their hands, he could only hand over the nuclear control obediently. The Dutchwoman was saved, but he was shot twice. When Chief Quaker arrived, Xavier had already started the nuclear control. He successfully launched a missile, and when he knew all this, Quaker was in a bad mood. He came up to Jericho and cursed him. But Jericho said he didn't have to worry because he had already modified the code from Dutchman. As long as you trigger the nuclear control, no matter where the target is, the first missile will definitely lock the control command system. The terrorist didn't know what happened and was blown up by the missile in the air. The story ended well. Although this long-hour film is not highly rated and the plot is old-fashioned, the film is starred by top star. It's still worth seeing.